God bless you, and welcome to another episode of God at Works. And today, the subtitle is simply, I Believe. And it's really coming from the passage in the book of Matthew, chapter 9, verse 28. And it said, When he had come into the house, the blind man came to him, and Jesus said to them, Do you believe that I am able to do this? And they said to him, Yes, Lord. They said to him, Yes, Lord, I believe. And I'm going to tell you a story of a friend of mine. That's her life. And to this day, she's saying, I believe. And I'll explain to you some of the steps that she's taken throughout the years. But in the meantime, Jerry, go ahead with the goodness of God.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire. In the darkest night, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Yes, I will sing of the goodness of God. Yes, I will sing of the goodness of God.
I will sing of the goodness of God. Yeah, and this testimony that I want to share with you today, that's exactly what this person was constantly doing. She was singing of the goodness of God, no matter where she found herself, no matter what position she found herself in. She was singing of the goodness of God. And the person I'm sharing her story today, her name is Audrey. And she, for a long time, was the pianist or the worship leader at my church when I was pastoring in New Westminster. But when I first met Audrey, she was, and she still is, totally blind. She was blind from birth. She's never had sight, never seen. And she had a seeing eye dog when I first met her. And there's a picture with seeing eye dog. And that dog actually reminded me very much of her dog when I first met Audrey. And we ran into a few little complications. I'm very allergic to dogs. And so with Audrey, a lot of the meetings at that time were held at the very beginning in our house. And I am so allergic to dogs, couldn't have them in the house because, dogs, they leave their hair and they leave the scents and this type of thing. And I would have been so in so much trouble with my breathing and everything that we had to work something else out. So she wanted to come so badly. She wasn't going to leave her dog behind, and nor was I going to insist that she did. But we had to work something out if I was going to be able to even teach a message that night or whatever because of the problem with my allergies. But she, after a while, when she was getting ready to start traveling on some of the trips with me and things like that, she realized that she didn't want to keep that dog anymore because it was hindering her from some of the things that she really believed she was supposed to do. And she ended up transferring from having a seeing eye dog. The dog ended up getting sick anyways, and so either she was going to end up having to get another dog eventually, or just learn to get around with a cane. And she took some training from the CNIB, the Canadian National Association for the Blind, and she learned how to maneuver with just her cane. And she could go anywhere, much better than I could in a lot of ways. She knew exactly where she had to go on a stair. In places where she frequented, she knew exactly how many stairs there were. She knew, etc. And she got from A to B like you could not imagine. And I mean, it got to the point in some places, she would grab onto somebody's arm for them to sort of guide her through a place. I wasn't very good at that. I felt so awful. We were down at the market, which at one point was my office, and she was holding onto my arm, and forgetting that she was holding onto my arm, I just headed down the stairs and I pulled her down the stairs. Poor Audrey fell, got a hole in the knee of her pants, and scratched up her knee and everything. I felt so badly. I felt so useless at trying to guide her that I didn't was afraid to even try it again. But she didn't care. She says, "You're not the first one that's done that to me, and I'm sure you won't be the last." Yeah, I'm sure I probably wasn't. But she learned to maneuver with that cane like you wouldn't imagine. She just got around up and down stairs, and she learned bus routes. She took public transportation everywhere. She learned all the different bus routes. She learned how to get wherever she needed to go. But Audrey, she had some very particular things going on in her life. She was determined that she was not going to be hindered by this issue of not having any sight. She wasn't going to let it hold her back. She was going to carry on no matter what. And she did. She went everywhere. But she learned, as I said, to do it with the cane. But also, when you have a disability here in Canada, there's pensions that are available for you, disability pension and government assistance for you to have what you need. And but she had decided she did not want to remain on government assistance the rest of her life. So she learned how to not only get around with her cane. You can see the picture actually with someone learning to get around with a cane. They feel the edge where there's a little drop off from the curb down, and it was amazing. I tried it one time actually. I didn't get very far, but she could go anywhere. But she decided She did not want to stay on the government assistance the rest of her life. A lot of people that are in that position think, when it's a disability and not just, not the welfare system or whatever, they get a little bit more income, and most of them can survive quite well with it. But she didn't want that. She did not want to be relying on the government assistance. So she decided she was going to take some courses and get herself a job. And she did. She took courses and she learned to use computers and learned how to write and transcribe and you name it with the computer, all with these special programs they have for the blind. And she got a job. Finally, she got a very good job because she graduated, with the top of her grades, at the top of her class type thing, very good grades, and she got a good job. And she was able to get completely off of her disability pension and be self-sustaining. So she was quite content, and that way she could come on different ministry trips with me as well. And she came several times. She came on a trip to the Ukraine. You can see the next picture in the Ukraine. There's Audrey with her cane, making her way around the Ukraine. And she came and she played the music in a lot of the meetings, or she played special songs in the different meetings. And she could hear music and play by ear like you couldn't imagine. She couldn't read music because she couldn't see music to read it, but she could play anything. She wrote a lot of songs. She wrote songs and recorded an album and everything else because she was determined she was not going to let her lack of natural vision hold her back. It wasn't going to happen. She came on one mission trip to Argentina with me, and we were out in a lot of rural areas on that trip. And when you get into the city and you have to cross a street in Buenos Aires, that is a scary thing, even for a sighted person, to cross a street in Buenos Aires. But Audrey did it with somebody there helping her across. But she just stepped out boldly with that cane of hers and crossed the street. She couldn't tell. She could hear if cars were coming. She couldn't tell whether they were going to stop for her or not, but she just kept going, trusting that the person that was with her was going to help her get across. And she did. She had a wonderful time on those trips. She was such a blessing to have on because she was willing to do whatever she could to fill a gap. And she was up there playing music for the skits that we would do and singing and you name it. She learned songs in Spanish so that she could do it in Argentina. And they were in English in the Ukraine. But she just went on. And she kept gathering photos from all of these different trips and all the different ministries and outreaches that we did, because we had the feeding program for the homeless, and Audrey did the music for the dinner, background music for the free dinner for the poor, and she helped out at the drop-in center as people would come in, and she would be their greeter there, and she would be handing out sandwiches for them, and you name it, she was doing it. But she was keeping pictures. And if people would take pictures, she'd say, "Could I have a copy of that? Could I have a copy of that?" "Audrey, what do you want all these pictures for?" "Well, I'm making my photo albums." "What do you mean you're making a photo album?" Almost mocking. "What are you making a photo album for? You can't see it." And she says, "Because I want to have it. I want to have the proof of all these different things that I've done over the years. And I want to be able to see it. When I get my eyesight, I want to be able to see it." And I don't remember one of the things, at Christmas time, we did a huge dinner for the homeless. And she was out there. We would do some meetings down in the market, and we would do some somewhere else just to raise funds for this dinner. And she would be out there playing the music, singing the Christmas carols. She made up all these Christmas carol booklets with her computer skills and had them all made up so everybody could sing along. And she kept making all of these pictures. "Audrey, come on, what are you doing this for, really?" And because I want to have the history that I've not been able to see now, I at least want to be able to look back on it when God heals me. And one of the things that she was sure of, and I know we prayed about it, and God gave her even a word that she was going to get married one day. And at first she's thinking, "How's that going to happen? I'm totally blind. Who's going to want?" She's married, got a wonderful husband, and they were doing ministry together. He played the guitar and she was playing the piano in their church. And having a wonderful time. But she was still keeping her photo albums. And I said, Audrey, are you really sure that you want to be doing that and packing those around? They're heavy to keep packing around, especially if you've ever seen a Braille Bible. It's not just one little Bible. It is one part, another part, another part, and it takes up a whole bookshelf just for her Braille Bible. But she was adamant she was going to learn to do whatever she could. And she did. She stepped out doing whatever she could to the point that one time, there's a picture that I'm going to get Jerry to put up in just a minute, but our office was on a very busy street at that point, and there was parking meters out front. We couldn't park anywhere in the area without paying for a parking meter. And I tell you, if you were late paying for that parking meter, very frequently they were there giving you a ticket. So I was at an appointment this one day, and I wasn't going to be able to get out of that appointment to put the money in my meter. And I said, Audrey, would you be willing to put the money in my parking meter? Because if you gave Audrey something to do, she would not forget. She would be so faithful to see it done. And she could memorize things like you would not imagine. She had people's phone numbers, hundreds of them memorized. Now we all have smartphones. We don't memorize them. She still has them memorized. But I asked, could you put the money in my parking meter? So I took her out and I showed her which one it was. It was right out in front of the door, so she couldn't get the wrong meter. And I showed her exactly where it was and where the money had to go. And so that's fine. I was in my appointment, and the next thing you know, Audrey's out there putting the money in my parking meter for me. Well, somebody found her doing that, saw her doing that, and took a picture. It ended up in the local newspaper. There's Audrey putting the money in my parking meter, and somebody goes, what? A blind person feeding a parking meter? Which car are they driving? You're thinking crazy things, but she was just happy to do whatever she could do. And she's still believing, just like that verse that I read earlier, that, and when he had come into the house, the blind man came to him, and Jesus said to him, do you believe that I am able to do this, that I am able to heal you? And they said to him, yes, Lord. Well, that's exactly how Audrey was answering. I believe. I believe God can heal me. I believe that he desires to heal me. And I believe that in his perfect time, it will happen. It has to be in his timing, not mine, she would say. But I know when it is his time, it'll happen. Who knows when his time will be? I don't know. But I know that she's believing. And then in the passage in Matthew chapter 11, in verses 4 or 5-ish, in verse 4, John had heard, who was in prison, he sent two of his disciples to go and find out what was going on because he'd heard all these things. And they were asking Jesus, are we to believe that you're the one, or is we're still to keep looking for another one? And Jesus answered them, and he said, go and tell John what you see. Tell him the blind see and the lame walk. The lepers are cleansed and the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. Go tell him. Go tell him that. And then you can decide, am I the one or aren't I? And the blind see. And every opportunity that there was a time to receive prayer for her sight, she would be up there receiving it. I had seen and run into people at different meetings, so many blind people. Oh, I've been prayed for. It hasn't worked. I'm not going to go again. Every opportunity Audrey had, she was letting people receiving prayer to receive her sight, believing that God would do the miracle. And God is faithful. We're still believing. She's still believing. She used to make me laugh all the time because she would, I'd say, oh, what'd you do last night, Audrey? How was your night? She'd say, oh, I was just at home watching TV. I said, you were what? You were watching? Well, yeah. Isn't that what you would say? Don't you speak that you were watching TV? I said, yeah, but you were listening to it. Well, I was watching it the way I watch with my ears. So I was watching TV. And she would let me know clearly that she was watching TV. But through all these circumstances that Audrey lived through, being born completely blind, attending a blind school all her life, and then going off and taking regular courses in regular college, regular school, learning what she could, getting off of her disability pension, going on mission trips. She had to learn. And it's a song that I'm going to ask Jerry to sing. It's called Through It All. But through it all, I will trust in Jesus. Through it all, I will trust in Him. So, Jerry, through it all, please.
I've had many tears and sorrows. I've had questions for tomorrow. There've been times I didn't know right from wrong. But in every situation, God gave blessed consolation that my trials only come to make me strong. I've been to lots of places, and you know I've seen a lot of faces. There have been times I've felt so all alone. But in those lonely hours, yes, those precious lonely hours, Jesus let me know I was His own. And through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus, and I've learned to trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend upon His word. I thank God for the mountains, I thank Him for the valleys, and I thank Him for the storms He brought me through. For if I'd never had a problem, I'd never know that my God could solve them, and I'd never know what faith in God can do. So through it all, trust in Jesus, and I've learned to trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend upon His word. Yes, through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus, and I've learned to trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend upon His word. Yes, I've learned to depend upon His word.
Through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus, learned to depend upon His word. And that's the life that Audrey has lived, is living, and will continue to live, I'm sure. But just like that one verse said one more time, and when he had come into the house, some translations actually say it, and when he had come into the house, the blind man came to him, and Jesus said to them, "Do you believe that I am able to give you sight?" And they said to him, "Yes, Lord." And I can still hear Audrey saying all the time, "Yes, Lord, I believe. Yes, Lord, I believe." And she does with all her heart. You see different steps that she takes and different things that she does that prove the trust and belief that she has in Jesus. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for your word. I thank you so much, Lord, that we can trust in you, that we can know without doubt that you are not a God who would lie. And if you say that you can and you will do something, you can and you will do it. So, Lord, it's not up to us to decide how or when you're going to do it. It's just up to us to believe. And so, Lord, I believe. Thank you for what you've done in Audrey's life and what you are continuing to do, Lord. And Lord, may you have your perfect will in our lives, as whatever situation we find ourselves in, that we too need to be able to declare, I believe. May we do so with our whole heart. In your precious name, amen. Amen. So I do hope that you are able to declare, I believe, and that you're going to trust Him for whatever it is you're living through, whatever it is you're going through, that you will be able to truly trust in Him through it all. God bless you. And if you've enjoyed this and would like to sow into the ministry, please feel free to do so. And in the meantime, we'll see you next week. Jerry will put the details up for you.